Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to RCI TV for round 4 of the European Masters Championship. We started the season out at a rainy Imola. We've travelled to Zolder, then we went to Barcelona, but we're back in the sunshine here for an afternoon race at Le Castellet. Paul Ricard hosts the 4th round and the penultimate round of the season for the European Masters Championship, and we get to find out today the question that's been on the minds of myself and my co-commentator for the last 7 days. Can any of the cars do one whole race here, 80 minutes, without taking a fuel stop? Well, we're going to find out in the space of the next 90 minutes, but my name is Ryan Gill, and of course I'm joined by the wonderful Jesse Lee, as he has joined me for the entire season so far. Jesse, how are you doing tonight? And to throw you in on the deep end, can anyone do it tonight?
Well, first of all, hello, Ryan Gill. Hello, Jake the Bosmeister Boswell. And hello to our stewards. And hope that you all are well this evening. And to answer your question, no. We have been assured by top men that it is impossible for any manufacturer to make it 80 minutes around here, which surely means somebody's going to try it.
Well, James Parker has assured me that he will try it today. He has told me that if he has to lose 10 seconds a lap...
Oh, you're serious about that?
He told me, if I've got it in text. It's down there, it's in the Discord chat, if anyone wants to go look at it.
I thought he was joking.
You can find the link to our Discord in the description, by the way. Sneaky plug there. But you can find it, James Parker, and I quote, "I will make it work, even if I have to lose 10 seconds a lap." But to contradict that, Killian Ryan Meenan has told me it is impossible to do 80 minutes here. One of those two is going to be right today, and we don't know which one. For Killian Ryan Meenan's sake, he better hope he's right.
Well, we were fed information last time out at Barcelona that seemed to agree that most of the cars couldn't make it on 80 minutes, and, well, all of them did, basically. At least one car from each manufacturer in the race, or at least that were inside the top 10 anyway, did end up making it without coming in to pit for fuel. We were later told by a lot of the drivers post-race, me and Ryan talked to them for a little while, they were just as surprised as we were that they made it. It became apparent at some point late in that race that they were going to be able to just sneak by. In fact, some of the podium winners from a week ago ran out of fuel on the cool-down lap. It was very close indeed, but they were just as surprised as we were that they could make it. Again, Killian Ryan Meenan told Ryan Gill that they can't make it. James Parker said watch, period. So we'll see who's right today. I don't know how beneficial losing 10 seconds a lap is. I don't think it would be worth it at that point. But James Parker kind of races for his own sort of principles more than anything else. And if anybody can pull it off, it's probably the AAA. 10-minute qualifying session underway here at Paul Ricard. And certainly we will see no fuel saving here in qualifying. Who do you think will run the quickest laps here today, Ryan?
Well, we know that for James Parker's strategy to work that we saw at Zolder and we saw at Barcelona, he needs to be on the front row, ideally in pole position. Now, that's going to be quite difficult around here. The BMW is very quick in a straight line. You have two very long straights here. And James Parker will be putting that BMW to its best use on the back straight, the Mistral straight, and then the front straight as well. The same will be said for Mia Rose, Mike Noble, Martin Schumacher as well, all of them in the BMWs. But Killian Ryan Meenan, he's told me that this is his best chance of a win in this championship. He said that this is the one that he has to push for the most, and he's going to try and put that Ferrari on the front row of the grid. And I think it's going to be a duel between Parker and Killian as to which one of them does end up on the grid, but I would not be surprised if Mike Noble gets amongst the two of them as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Mike Noble, one of the quickest in qualifying. Killian Ryan Meanan was up there as well. So I love this. We came into this championship, we came into this season assuming that it was going to be dominated by BMWs and Ferraris. And while a lot of the top teams have been in BMWs and Ferraris, the Porsches have been strong as well, and so have the Audis. So there hasn't really been a dominant car, and that's fantastic to see for competition's sake. And speaking of competition's sake, as the cars start their first timed laps, speaking of competition, there is a championship that is likely going to go down to the wire, and I think today could be a day that we see the championship change hands. But even if it does, it's going to be still very close. We'll get you all caught up with the points after qualifying is done. James Parker struggling with the curbs here. You don't usually think about the curbs being or playing a big factor, but they certainly can in Sector 1.
They definitely can, and one of the big no-nos around here, of course, is track limits, a very familiar foe for a lot of these drivers and a lot of drivers that have raced at Paul Ricard in pretty much any sim that I can think of. Track limits are a nuisance around here, very, very easy to pick up a warning, and I would not be surprised if we do see at least one driver this evening pick up a drive-through in the race. I would not be surprised if there isn't already a few invalidated laps. And as I say that, I see 3 drivers already with invalid laps in Sector 1. So that kind of confirms that theory. It's not too unfamiliar to see that in a qualifying session, but of course around here at Paul Ricard, where you've got to maximise your entry and your exit, there is no gravel, there is no grass. You're way more likely to extend every corner you can. It's way more common that you will see invalidated laps. And as I've just been going over that, I've seen another 2 laps get invalidated, one of them from Killian Ryan Meanan. But this man right here, James Parker, he hasn't invalidated his lap, and he will come up towards the timing line. This is the benchmark. It's a 154.195 from James Parker, and that is a solid start to the qualifying session.
It's a solid start, but it is not unbeatable. But speaking of, Mike Noble with a 53.574 goes quickest of all. 6/10 separates him and James Parker at the moment. But I have a feeling the 231 of Killian Ryan Meanan might have something to say about this before it's all done. Gerardus coming around the top of the race course here. Just a few turns left, looking like their lap is still on. And like you said, invalidated laps in qualifying, well, if you do that in the race, that will be track limits warnings. And for whatever reason, we do see a good number of those here. And in recent memory, we've also seen some pit infringement, like speeding penalties, so to speak. But for the time being, that will be not of their concern. What does the 111 do? Good enough for 6th place, 54.921. Going to have to pick it up, though, if they want to compete up at the front. Mike Noble resetting there. So 1 and done for him. He will likely go back out again and set one more lap. 10-minute session, large track, not a lot of laps, not a lot of opportunities.
No, definitely not. The larger tracks definitely do give you less laps to go out there. It's why Zolder would have been one of the more preferred choices for qualifying to get more laps down on the board. James Parker has parked the car, his BMW, back in the pit lane. He's not going to have many more opportunities to go around and improve on that lap time. Mike Noble, of course, still sitting on provisional pole, but this man who invalidated his first lap couldn't get a banker lap down immediately. He's coming up towards the line now. This lap will count. Where will it sit for Killian Ryan Meanan? In 2nd place, throws his Ferrari onto the front row of the grid, but still 4/10 down on Mike Noble's lap time. The 1-2-3 for FFS Racing looking imperious right now.
Yeah, that lap is going to take some beating. I saw Killian run a time in practice, however, that could rival that. And I don't know how many other drivers are going to get close to it, but we shall see. Imperious is the right word. That is an incredible lap, and it is absolutely the mark to beat. Again, you have to sort of ride that line of speed and where the track limits are. IPEC comes through, it's a 56.289, and they will have a rethink. And I think if they get out of the pit lane quickly enough, they will be able to do one more lap. Cormac Ryman coming across the line, a 55.335 for the number 5 Porsche, the Cormac GP Porsche that is. So they'll be looking to improve upon that, but not on this particular occasion, as they are, well, they're on the track. It's just a different track.
Yeah, Cormac in 16th place will definitely be looking to get further up the field. He's usually not too far off Killian's pace, but at the moment quite a way off Killian's pace. And Cormac Ryman, who came out with a podium from the most recent Night Owl race, finished runner-up at Spa in the Aston Martin, but switching over to the Porsche for this championship, and of course completely different cars. The only driver with no lap time on the board at the moment, Nico Kumpu, down in 20th place. IPEC does have a lap on the board, but 2.7 seconds down and well off the pace at this point in time. Although I suppose it's better than no lap time at all. Here comes Kumpu, though, into the final corner. And across the line he goes, and up into 15th place. So significant improvement there for Kumpu, 1.5 seconds off the pace. Mike Noble still out in front and still not able to improve on his lap time, it would seem.
Well, Matteo Sonati just set a top 5 time in the 251 Ferrari. Not bad at all for Sonati, getting inside the top 5 provisionally here. Everybody in the top 10 out there trying to get laps done. In fact, there's only 2 cars that have decided that they will take no further part. Go ahead and make that 3 cars. Mr. Jones, Jenkins, and now Rose have elected to not take further part as Gerardus comes across the line, slots in to 6th place. Mike Noble looking to improve upon his already impressive lap time. What is this going to be? It is not faster. It is only slower by 2/100ths, however. And just a reminder, folks at home, we do apologize for the slight audio hiccup. Our broadcaster is working on that. We understand that we sound like we're coming through a loudspeaker, which would be fine if you're trackside, but we understand that you're not. So we do apologize for that, and we are looking into getting that sorted for the race. Well, the 53.574 looking like the mark to beat. Oh dear, I don't know if anybody can do it, Ryan.
Well, if any man can do it, it's going to be this man right here as he comes up towards the timing line. He won't do it on this particular lap. He will improve and maintain himself in 3rd position. But it's now or never for James Parker. If he's going to get that BMW on the front row of the grid, he needs to find almost 0.2 of a second. If he wants to put it on pole, he needs to find 0.6 of a second. The timer has run out. All of the drivers now on their final lap, and James Parker, he invalidated his lap and he has parked it. No front row for the championship leader. Killian Ryan has parked the car as well. And with Gerardus being the only one in the top 6 still out there on the track and 0.7 down on what Mike Noble's been able to do, I very much doubt that he's going to unsettle the 1-2-3 from its provisional pole position. Berenick will cross the line, finishing as high as 10th. Kumpu is up in 11th. They finish as well. Here comes Martin Schumacher. How much can he improve from 14th place? Only as good as 13th. And he will be the lowest place of the BMWs and the only one outside the top 5. Mike Noble, he comes out the final corner, though, up towards the timing line, and he won't improve on his lap time, but did not need to anyways.
What an incredible... If he can run that pace all day long, I don't think it's going to matter what anybody else does. I think he can pit two or three times and still make it out okay. I don't really think that. Could you imagine if that's his in-race pace? Now, qualifying is very different. Different fuel load, different balance on the car, as you know, and you only need one lap speed. Whereas in a race like this, 80 minutes, you have to make the tires last a bit longer than a lap. So that will be the task for everyone now. Can qualifying speed translate into race speed? Mike Noble on pole with Killian Ryan Meenan on the front row. Parker and Rose share the second row. Sonati and Gerardis in the next row with Schaefer and Baba behind them. Macha and Baranek round out the top 10 in row 5. Kumpu, Jones, Schumacher, Lima, Borovic, Boardman, Ipek, Cormac, Ryman, and Leffa, Jenkins, the top 20.
Well, we will, of course, show you the championship standings, and we'll see exactly where everyone stands at this point in time. Of course, like I said, James Parker is the championship leader, 226 points to his name. And Mike Noble not too far behind, just 9 points difference between them. Mike Noble on 217 points. Martin Schumacher sitting in third. It's BMW 1-2-3 in the championship standings. Those no stops have definitely helped them in the championship positions, but how far will it take them today at Paul Ricard? Jarkko Toivonen, unfortunately, not here tonight, despite an impressive fourth in the championship so far. Then it's Killian Ryan Meenan in fifth. He's the man who's looking to put a win to his name here tonight. Romano Beranek, who went for that incredible no-stop in the Porsche at Barcelona that we did not expect. He's in sixth. Mia Rose in seventh in the championship. She'll want to improve tonight as well. Olaf Leffer, Cody Pride, and Ufuk Barber round out the top 10 in the championship. And funny enough, the top 10 in the championship, the only drivers to surpass the 100 points mark. Moving on to the second page, Manos Gerardis with 94 points, and then just behind him, Andy Boardman and Mr. Jones, both tied on 90. Paulo Lima has 83 points to his name, and Nico Kumpu on 75. Robin Schaefer with 67, and then Bart Matcher, the strategist master, on 57 points. Harry Conway, unfortunately, no longer in the championship. He has signed out. Clayton Barney on 55 points. He's not here tonight. Levitt Ipek is here tonight on 54. They'll be looking to gain a few places in the championship. Jack Young, I do not believe is here tonight either. He's on 48 points, and Philip Borovic is on 44. Of course, they're continuing on to the third page. Then we have Atabak Ertan, Cormac Ryan Meenan, Merhed Numik, Atakan Akar, Sebastian Crow, Matteo Chinotti, Ethan Jenkins, and Furkan Ozcan. Of those, I know that Ertan, Numik, Akar, Crow, and Ozcan are unfortunately no longer here. Jenkins is here tonight. I believe Chinotti is also here tonight. So they will be looking to gain a significant amount of points over those that are just ahead of them in the championship. But those are the standings. And as we return to the live scenes on the grid, we're just a few seconds away from the formation lap.
Well, we're going to go ahead and start off with a bit of a discussion, a little Ryan Gill, Jesse Lee discussion. Well, we all know your pole sitter, Mike Noble, as they begin to pull away from the grid. Mike Noble loves himself a very, we'll call it proudly painted car. Well, today it is actually not looking too bad, though I will tell you, I just got to look at the rims and they're pea soup green, so maybe we'll have to rethink our previous hypothesis. But everybody away on the pace lap. When they come back around, it will be 80 minutes, 1 hour, 20 to go in the race. The last race in this format, round 5, the season finale will be 2 40-minute races, just like the first round in the championship was. 2 chances to score points there. It's going to be very interesting to see. I feel like we are going to have a championship that goes right down to the wire. So go ahead, like, subscribe, hit the bell. Don't miss next Monday's season finale for the Euromasters Championship. Same time and same place. Ryan Gill, very quickly, can anybody catch Mike Noble today?
Well, if it's going to be anyone, I think it's going to be Killian Ryan Meenan. He has come out rather boldly and said they can't do it on one tank. He's confident here tonight, Jesse. And, well, the last time he was this confident, he did go into the back of Mike Noble on lap 1 at Zolder. So maybe that's something to watch out for down towards turn 1. And, you know, I think Killian will be a lot more careful this time, but he needs to get ahead of Mike Noble. He needs to clear off into the distance if he's going to make this strategy work. He's convinced the BMWs can't do it on a single tank. He will want them to waste as much time as they can preserving fuel and then realizing the mistake, having to switch over to a refill and then not be able to catch up to him no matter how much they turn up the fuel mixture. Killian's got his strategy set tonight. He's convinced it's the right one. James Parker, we know, is also convinced he's on the right strategy, but he's on a completely different idea. He's going to use the same plan he had at Zolder and at Barcelona. It worked really well at Zolder, It didn't work so well at Barcelona, but it still reaped plenty of points for him. I don't know what the right answer is today. My gut feeling is that Killian is right, but after what I saw at Barcelona with a Porsche go all the way 80 minutes and would have won the race if it wasn't for a 15-second penalty, I'm not sure what I should believe at this point.
Folks at home, what we're telling you is really rather simple. We don't know what to expect, and last week really shut us up as far as a commentary team. We thought we had a general understanding of what we could expect, especially at a track where you're on the throttle as much as Barcelona, and we didn't. But we are being told this week that it is impossible for anybody to go the full distance. But I still hark back to the fact that we were told that a week ago at Barcelona as well, and it didn't go that way. Well, we're going to have to find out. Can James Parker win this race without stopping? Can Killian Ryan Meenan get around Mike Noble? Can anyone stop Mike Noble, who looks like a big threat today to take the championship lead? Well, we're about to find out. 80 minutes side by side. Here they come.
Down towards the line they go. 20 cars line up side by side, 10 rows on the grid. It's BMW and Ferrari. It is the title contenders towards the front. It's exactly what we want to see. And 80 minutes of racing is green. And Mike Noble looked to have a poor start. Look at the start from Mia Rose. What an incredible start. Not only jumping James Parker, now pressuring Mike Noble and Killian Ryan Meenan into turn 1. She's going to take Killian into turn 1. Mike Noble will lead, but Mia Rose from 4th on the grid up to 2nd in the space of a corner.
Nobody expected that out of Mia Rose, probably not even Mia Rose. To get a start like that, either everybody else bottled it slightly or Mia got the absolute start of her life. Either way, brilliant stuff up in the 2nd place, and immediately on the defensive is James Parker. He will have gotten a lot of practice doing this the last several weeks, though this track very hard to do so with the Mistral Straight, very long indeed, but looks to be hanging with or keeping Killian Ryan Meenan at bay, at least halfway up the straight. But now the big suck coming into effect. What can Killian do? Pulling out to the left, or to the right rather. Not even a defensive move by James Parker here.
James Parker not even going to look into defend. He's going to hang it on the outside. Killian Ryan Meenan gets the move done. I was going to say that it was inconvenient for Killian to have a poor start and end up behind James Parker. The man is going to be fuel saving all the way to the end, I'm told. But he has managed to get past him at the first opportunity he would get on the Mistral Straight. And now his targets are in front of him. The two BMWs that had a much better start than he did. Mia Rose and Mike Noble will be the next ones in the sight of the Ferrari, but it's going to be interesting to see here. Are Mia Rose and Mike Noble on the same strategy as James Parker, or have they decided that Killian is right? No one can do 80 minutes on a single tank here, and they're just going to go full beans.
I don't think those two BMWs are on a full fuel map. It doesn't look like it, but we will find out here in a moment. Either Killian has found half a second, or Mike Noble and Mia Rose are on a lean fuel map. At least that's what it appears like at the moment, as Mia Rose must be wondering, well, what do I do now? Do I defend with all my life, or do I let Killian go? Though, just as I say that, Rose actually ekes out a tenth or so. But this man, Mike Noble, already has a 1.3 second gap, and it looks, to my eye, even larger than that now. I'm sure it will update and show the gravity of the situation. That definitely looks longer than a second. And here comes Killian Ryan Meenan getting the tow up the straightaway. And Gerardus, everybody just in a long train down the back straightaway. You have a long time to think about your next move, and certainly none, though, happening now. And this is the big problem here. Coming out the Mistral straight into the right-hander, if you do not get inside those little curb markers, you will get a track limits warning. We saw so many invalidated laps in qualifying. I have already counted 2 or 3 invalidated laps on the opening lap. Keep in mind, you only get 3 of those. The 4th one will cost you an extra trip down pit road.
Yep, it definitely will, and it's one that we will have to look out for. Credit, by the way, it's been a very, very clean start to this race. A couple of laps down, we've had no incidents that I can see. Everyone's still in a very neat and organized queue. And I think it's probably been a bit quiet in the steward's box. They probably need it, though, to be fair, after all the busy work that they had to do in the Night Owl race on the weekend. And they're going to be hoping for a nice race here today, maybe one that they can enjoy for once. And Martin Schumacher, he's not really enjoying his time at the moment, down in 16th place. The 411 seems to be the only BMW that doesn't have the pace to run up towards the front. Martin Schumacher sitting 3rd in the championship, remember, Jesse?
Yes, indeed. Martin Schumacher trying to get the best that he possibly can do. Mia Rose, however, the Australian driver, still hanging on to that position. Maybe the fuel map is set to full race, but it certainly looked like Killian was going to catch up immediately, but didn't. And judging by the fact that Mike Noble is walking away, I don't think any of these drivers now are on a save, though it did initially look like it with the first lap, the way that Killian was able to catch up. But beyond that, they are all very close on pace as Mike Noble does continue to drive away. Perhaps he's the one that's the furthest away on pace. 1.8, nearly 1.9 seconds the gap. But closing in now is Killian on Mia Rose. It's going to be interesting to see what she does. She go heavy defense like James Parker usually does, or does she just sort of let this happen? Maybe different strategy in the 909 camp. Very interesting to find out for the John Lacey driver.
Yeah, Mia Rose will definitely be one to watch. Of course, she's been the BMW that has unfortunately not had the best of finishes so far this season, over the course of the entire season. Manos Gerardis, by the way, making Schaefer use the entire left side of the circuit there, but Schaefer's going to fit it down towards turn 1. I suppose it doesn't matter if you force them to use the entire width of the circuit if they can still find a gap down towards the inside. And Schaefer making their way through on Gerardis, and Barber now having a look as well, but not quite able to go up the inside or around the outside of Gerardis. But credit Robin Schaefer where it's due. Kept it pinned on the inside, made the space happen after they were almost forced off the track, and kept it clean, most importantly.
Yes, indeed. I just looked across the way at Stephen DeVost, our one of our stewards for the day, and he has his feet up on the desk. It's been a very clean start indeed. The only thing not clean about that start, of course, was the lap invalidations. And I saw another one on that lap. You may have noticed they're about to go through there again. Pay attention to the striped markers on the exit of this turn. You'll see them very quickly have to get back inside them, and a lot of drivers there are making a knee-jerk reaction move to make sure that they get back inside the track's bounds. But beyond that, Baba all over the back of Gerardus now, trying to get the sixth place position away. Baba trying to get that position away because Baranik's behind him and not taking any prisoners. Baranik side by side, at least for a moment, right onto the back of Baba now is Baranik in the 66. Very close quarter stuff, but very clean indeed.
Absolutely great to see at this point in time. Of course, Baranik was on the podium last week at Barcelona. He went all the way, would have won the race if it wasn't for a 15-second time penalty. It was a few tenths of a second in the end that split himself and Mike Noble from the win, but a podium did a wonder for his standing in the championship, and he'll be looking to replicate a similar performance today. Going to see if he can bring that Porsche up towards the front of the grid. He is the highest placed of the Porsches and not doing too bad for himself at the moment. Mia Rose continues her defense against Killian Ryan Meenan, and Martin Schumacher, meanwhile, has improved on a couple of places. He was in 16th a bit earlier on, but now having to defend from Filip Borovic, who I believe he did pass just a few moments ago, but now really on the back foot. This is where the BMW should be strong against the Porsche on the back straight, assuming Martin Schumacher isn't on a fuel-saving strategy. It should just be able to pull away from the Porsche, even with the slipstream that the Porsche will have. We'll see here on the rear wing cam, but now, is the Porsche just able to close down? I don't think it is. Even in the slipstream, it's just sitting there behind. It can't catch. It's almost a stalemate. Or if the Porsche is catching, it's not catching quick enough to make a difference. They'll get to the end of the Mistral Straight, and Martin Schumacher looks safe for another lap. And very aggressive over the curbs to cut back in onto the circuit, but I suppose that risk is worth taking rather than getting a drive-through penalty.
Yeah, anytime that you can extend the track limits, a lot of times you end up gaining time. That's what those little markers are for, to tell you how much you can legally take before the ACC in-sim stewards start wagging their finger. And it is a bit of a gamble. You can, if your car is low enough, get yourself onto that curb and create a very slippy situation, trying to come back across them and cornering hard. But usually it's not that much of a problem, though I have seen it happen, usually in the evening hours of races, where the track is perhaps a bit more grippy or a bit colder as well, end up spinning people off in that particular area. Boardman here having a big battle with Lima. The 24 would like to get around, but Boardman not yielding. Lima going down to the inside, taking a look, but not quite there, getting all the way onto the back of him. Could this maybe be a run down the Mistral Straight, perhaps?
It'll depend on the straight line speed ability that Mercedes has. We know that the Mercedes burns a lot of fuel compared to some of the other cars on the grid. In fact, Ryan Mawson telling us the other night the fuel is quite deceiving on this car, and look at the straight line speed that it produces though in that fast map. Paulo Lima might have been passed by Andy Boardman into turn one, but it might not matter. Is the Mercedes going to have the legs on the Ferrari, or is the Ferrari just going to kick it up another gear towards the end of the straight? Yes, it is. The Ferrari's top end just beating out Paulo Lima's on the Merc. Maybe some lower downforce on Andy Boardman's car just to allow him to take that, but he goes wide into the long right-hander, and is this going to allow Paulo Lima to get back into it? He'll be forced onto the outside line. Gonna have a look for the cut back here for the Mercedes, but I think Boardman just about cuts it off. And Boardman going wide not long after the Mistral Straight. I think that almost confirms the theory that he's probably running on some very low downforce to try and maximize the speed he gets on that Mistral Straight.
Meanwhile, Cormac Ryan Meenan brought his number 5 to pit lane about a lap or so ago and has retired that car. The garage door for the 5 Porsche is down. They will take no further part in the race. And also, Killian Ryan has got around Mia Rose. 2.8 seconds the gap between him and the leader, Mike Noble. Pay attention to that. We'll see if that comes down. Mia Rose, though, not done with Killian, and neither is Paulo Lima on Andy Boardman.
No, definitely not. And something to keep in mind further at the front as we watch these five duke it out. Killian Ryan has, of course, got past Mia Rose, and he's not catching Mike Noble, which is quite interesting. 2.9 seconds. It was 2.5 seconds when Killian got past Mia Rose. So Killian not able to close down on Mike Noble. That's up to 3 seconds now. I wonder if that is a clue to say Mike Noble is going full beans as well for it, Jesse, because, you know, part of me thinks if he was on a fuel-saving strategy like James Parker or potentially Mia Rose, he wouldn't be able to keep up this pace. He wouldn't be able to extend the gap as Martin Schumacher makes his way past Paulo Lima, and we're looking at IPEC in the background and Borovic. But I think Martin Schumacher has got past. There's a BMW stranded, and that might be James Parker. It is!
James Parker. He's done the thing I talked about. You usually get away with it coming over the curb, but I don't think he's done it on this occasion. Yes, indeed. Literally talked about that a lap ago. Usually you get away with that. Sometimes it bites you. And here, in fact, it is. If there ever was a commentator's curse, that right there is the proof of it. And I'm also being told by Joe in chat that the same thing happened to Cormac in the 5, and that's why the 5 has retired. And for the 888, the strategy has come undone, and potentially the championship as well. James Parker in the pit lane, and I believe they towed to pit lane, Ryan.
Oh dear, James Parker, the championship leader, the man who was going to try and go for that no-stop strategy tonight. Unfortunately, might not even get the chance to go for the no-stop strategy, making that mistake. It's such an easy mistake to make. I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone here can put their hand up and say, yep, I've done that before. It's so easy to do. And especially in a car like the BMW, doesn't really like those long, fast corners that you have. Doesn't really appreciate the quick changes of direction. And, well, James Parker just unfortunately falling victim to that kind of incident. And like you said, Jesse, potentially the end of his title hunt, as we see Girardis battling it out with Berenic at this point in time. Battles all the way throughout the field at this stage. Speaking of all the way throughout the field, we can see battles in the background there as well. But Martin Schumacher, he's going to have a look on the outside. Can't quite do it. Is that going to allow Lima to come back in? Martin Schumacher goes wide.
Oh, no!
Boardman loses it, and he's going to lose out big time. 2 places down for Andy Boardman. It might be a 3rd as well. Lima goes up in front. Martin Schumacher takes a place as well, and Boardman manages to salvage something from a big mistake that could have had horrible consequences. Robin Schaefer down towards turn 1 is going to be on the inside of a Fouk Barber in the 866 and is going to get past as well. The 939 making up places. The Ferraris are on a move here tonight, and Robin Schaefer definitely making up the most of it. Up into 4th place now. Will be starting to hunt down the 909 of Mia Rose, but has found himself, at the front of a bit of a train as well. Girardis and Berenic, they look like they're almost stuck behind Barber.
Oh my, I was just thinking that whole time how annoyed I would be if I was Paulo Lima and I was trying to get around Boardman and somehow Martin Schumacher got around me in the process. And Boardman, I just got to say, what a save that was. If that would have been me, I would have been gone. But Boardman's able to save it somehow, only losing the 2 places. And while that is unfortunate, it is still very much in the hunt. Romano Berenic, by the way, still trying to get by Girardis. And here's IPEC all of a sudden in the mix. We'll see if IPEC can complete the pass, stay, or they said, oh no, and completely wide. Is that Borovic? It is. It is Philippe Borovic on the outside, just no grip and loses it. Tries to turn it in here and just gets quarter of the way into the turn and loses it. And thank goodness, I know a lot of people hate the almost psychedelic runoff areas here, but it definitely saved Borovic there, and I'm sure at least for that lap he appreciated it.
Yeah, if you had gravel and grass there, I can't quite say that the result would have been the same, and I'm pretty sure that Philippe Borovic knows that. It's pretty much, Paul Ricard is basically the only circuit in ACC you can get away with that kind of thing. And one of the more unique features of this circuit, Schaefer, of course, did get past Barber. We showed you that just a lap ago, but hasn't been able to break away from the 866 and now finds himself at the front of this train. Is Barber going to have a look on the inside? Down towards the hairpin, had a look, not quite able to get the move done, but will now look to slingshot themselves onto the back straight, onto the Mistral straight, really close onto the back of Robin Schaefer, and now will look to use the power of the Ferrari. It's Ferrari versus Ferrari. Which one has the lower downforce? Which one can use their car's abilities to get past the other? Well, it looks like Barber is going to have to slip back into the slipstream. Meanwhile, behind them, it's Girardis and Berenic looking to go side by side as well. Here we go towards the end of the Mistral straight into Scene Corner. And it looks like it all stays stationary, but so many bumps over the curves. There's a slight touch between Barber and Schaefer, and that's going to allow Girardis to get in. The 111 is going to sneak the Audi up through the inside, and he will take the place from Barber, and now it will be up to Romano Berenic to capitalize on the mistake. The 866 just run wide, and that just shows you how quickly you can lose a place around here from a tiny mistake.
Well, if this was Formula One and he was Lando Norris, that would likely be a penalty for running somebody that hard, but I don't think for RCI the stewards will even look at something like that. And I hate to throw people under the bus, but FI, what are you doing? But for Manos Girardis, what a pass it was. And, well, looking to stay in the lead there, but Baba has other ideas, and Sonati behind him, just a little bit behind. Again, all these drivers here trying to stay in front of somebody. Sonati, of course, trying to stay in front of Macha, and now Baba's trying to stay in front of Berenic.
Yeah, it's just a domino effect, isn't it, as they defend full position. In the meantime, Killian Ryan is continuing to lose time to Mike Noble. I think that pretty much confirms that Mike Noble is on a, full, let's go as fast as we can strategy. Mia Rose has dropped off slightly. James Parker still in the pit lane. He hasn't. So Romano Berenic almost finds the wall. James Parker still in the pit lane. 4 laps down at this point in time, but he hasn't quit the session. I wonder if he plans to come back out and see this race to the end and try and pick up some points to see what he can salvage so far. And that's Manos Girardis recovering. He's definitely gone wide, or there's been contact. I'd like to think it was going wide rather than a collision. Not sure if we'll be able to pick that up. Here we go. Whoa! And there it goes, the back end. And he saves it, though. Well done. To not have that car go around in loops, completely flat spot the tyres. Somehow manages to get that car pointing in the right direction. And Manos Girardis only loses a couple of places from what could have been a very, very unfortunate accident. But I believe he is coming into the pits anyway. Probably thinks it best to get off that set of tyres whilst he can.
Well, he's absolutely correct. You might as well call the morgue because those tires are dead.
Well, Martin Schumacher has benefited from a couple of the shenanigans going on up ahead. He's up into 13th place and now closing back in on Andy Boardman. Paulo Lima starting to clear off from Boardman now, 1.9 seconds between them, and he was of course, just ahead of Andy Boardman a few laps ago, but here comes IPEC. Really late dive down towards the inside, couldn't quite make it stick, and now Martin Schumacher will go defensive on the inside.
No!
There's a tap on the back. It's not going to create anything, but, well, it will create an opportunity for Borovic to go up the inside, and he will take it. I think there was slight contact between himself with IPEC, but he took the opportunity to make up a place after the mistake from the Mercedes, and he got it.
Well, I got to tell you, that is the ultimate opportunistic move. Borovic saw the accordion effect happen in front of him and was able to get that position. Unfortunately, the Porsche not really known for its straight line prowess, so they will be under fire here. But I tell you what, if they can hold it, they might just get some space, but he's not going to hold it. Borovic's going to lose it on the inside curb at the end of the Mistral Straight and completely go sideways. The second car in as many laps, all the manufacturers struggling at the top of the circuit.
Well, we've seen quite a few drivers today do similar things. That corner at the end of the Mistral Scene Court, it's just such a hassle for the drivers to deal with, and especially, you know, that quick change of direction, or if you're on a full load of fuel, it really, really does punish the car, and you have to get it right, and it is difficult to get it right lap after lap after lap, and we've seen some of the best drivers in ACC fall victim to it. James Parker just earlier on, and now we've seen Borovic fall victim as well. We saw Gerardus fall victim just a lap ago, and it's going to be one of the consistent themes of tonight, Jesse, isn't it? If you can keep it pinned through that corner, if you can keep it safe and not make a mistake, you're going to gain so much time on all the drivers that are making those mistakes. And, well, I suppose kind of importantly for Killian Ryan Meenan, he's going to have to hope that he doesn't make that mistake and that Mike Noble does make that mistake. And if you're wondering what Jesse Lee is laughing at, he's probably just seen Killian Ryan Meenan's team name for today, FFS Mike Noble Fan Club.
I'm a part of that fan club too, but I did know Killian was as well. You're very correct, Ryan. I was laughing at that. I had not previously seen that. They're not locked into a team name, folks, here at the RCI Championships. They can change it whenever they want. It's not particularly important to anybody but us commentators for identification purposes. And a lot of times they sort of put in little Easter egg jokes for us. I don't think that one's for us. I think that's literally just a fan appreciation there. But Killian Ryan Meenan running second to Mike Noble himself. And remember earlier I said that gap was about 3 or so seconds. Well, it's 4.4 now is where it's ballooned out to. So safe to say Mike Noble is not saving anything, because Killian Ryan Meenan certainly wouldn't be, that we're aware of, unless they're on a map lower just to get to a fuel number so they can split the race in half perhaps and take less fuel. But I don't really see a reason for that. So safe to say Mike Noble is not on a save, and Killian Ryan Meenan is losing about the time he was off in qualifying, but perhaps a little less each lap as they go around. So for Killian Ryan Meenan, it could all come down to a pit stop, but for now, losing a little bit of time everywhere. And give a hand to Mia Rose. She is in third place solidly. Nobody immediately threatening her position. And I just can't get over that start she had. Where did she find, Ryan, all of that extra speed that nobody else had? That was incredible.
Well, I mean, the race start, you can gain a lot of positions on a race start. I mean, I have had particularly good success in, it was not this GT4 championship, the championship before, when I was in the Camaro on the race starts. You know, if you get a good launch on the start, you can jump, 2-3 people before turn one, especially if it's a long run down towards the first corner, which it is at Paul Ricard. And if you get the perfect start, if you absolutely nail it, and a couple of the people in front of you don't quite get it, we see sometimes a few people make the mistake, they start accidentally in second gear. It's quite easy to get in the places, but it was a fantastic start, and she's done everything she needs to do right now. And the most important thing I think that Mia Rose has done I mean, she is still in contention for a win, as long as Ryan Meenan's in contention for a win. Mia Rose is going to be in contention for a win. She's only 1.8 seconds back from him. And I think that's the crucial thing. She's within range to make an opportunistic move on Ryan Meenan if he makes a mistake. And that's going to be crucial for Mia Rose if she wants to finish higher up on the podium here today, or if she wants to have a chance of winning. Because if we're led to believe that Killian can win this race on pace, which we haven't quite seen yet, then Mia Rose is going to have to be as close as possible to that Ferrari to make her chance of winning the race go up as much as possible. And she's got a nice gap behind her, 5.3 seconds to Schaefer.
Yeah, and Schaefer's actually being slowed down. That gap's actually ballooned in the past half a lap or so. And that's because Schaefer is now having to drive a bit more in the mirror than he would like to. Baba is on an absolute tear in the 866, driving up through the field inside the top 5, looking for 4th place now. I don't know what makes that Ferrari stand out from all the other ones, but Baba's about the quickest Ferrari on the track right now, and absolutely hounding Schaefer for that position. We can talk about Robin Schaefer. We can talk about them much, but also doing a fantastic job this season and inside the top 5 again. But Baba would very much prefer to be in 4th. All over him here. Just looks like that car's so planted.
Definitely wasn't planted earlier on when Robin Schaefer snuck it up the inside, but maybe Baba just recovering now. Maybe the fuel load lightening on that Ferrari has just, allowed Baba to maximize the circuit more, a bit more comfortable with the car on the exits. And Romano Berenik just 1.4 seconds behind as well, keeping himself within striking distance if there's a collision or a mistake. And Romano Berenik looking very, very good to potentially get another top 5 result. Of course, he was the fastest driver in the pre-qualifying that some of these guys had to go through, and well, rightly so, did manage to sneak on the podium. We were expecting a win from Romano Berenik. Didn't quite happen by about 0.2 of a second, but still plenty of pace left in that Porsche driver, and you can see how much pace is left in Romano Berenik. The best of the Porsches by a decent margin. He's up in 6th. Olaf Leffer, the second best Porsche, is down in 14th.
Yeah, I always found it interesting how certain drivers can struggle in equal equipment and others rise to the occasion. It's down to a lot of things: track preference, setup, obviously, and preparation. And there'll be some weeks where you'll see a driver that's usually very apt in a particular car lose to somebody else in the same equipment. You wonder how's that happened. Well, different drivers have different taste and different expertise. So it's very possible that, I'm big fan of the term every driver has their day, and certainly Romano Berenik was having a ball right up until the last dying moments. Absolutely crushing stuff at Barcelona, though you will have to admit, I feel like Berenik would claim a moral victory there, and I wouldn't blame him for doing so.
Well, we may have a replay coming up for the start of the race. Might be able to catch a replay of exactly how Mia Rose managed to get the incredible start that she did. Of course, courtesy of Jake Boswell, our broadcaster here for this evening, doing a fantastic job as usual. And we'll get to see exactly what happens. So here on the start, lights go green, and it almost looks like James Parker just doesn't move. Maybe that's the fuel map that is being taken into account. James Parker's fuel map just didn't really have the ability to get the launch, but maybe the straight line speed of the BMW as well gets a nice launch off the line, and Killian just maybe getting another one of those scruffy starts that we've seen. We've seen him do it a couple times this season, haven't we, Jesse? Killian hasn't been the greatest on the start, and well, Mia Rose just looking like she absolutely capitalized on what was not the best of starts for Killian Ryman or James Parker, and well, she absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, a couple things. Mia Rose, I say this every week, and I sound like a broken record, but it's nonetheless true. Mia Rose is a great race car driver, and she doesn't get the finishes that she deserves a lot of the time, whether that be through incidents, strategy not playing out, whatever it may be. The talent there is there. The wins and the podiums certainly will come in. And the other thing I take away from that start after seeing it again, thank you, by the way, Jake, for showing us that again. How clean it was. There were three wide. There were three wide back in the pack. There were no incidents reported. Very clean stuff, despite the fact that there were a lot of moving parts going back and forth up and down that field. I mean, how clean has the race been? Well, I've received 5 steward reports as for REN. I've received 5 reports, and every single one of them goes as follows: no further action, no further action, no further action, no further action, and a racing incident between the 22 and the 224. So literally as clean as you could ever have liked. And to your point, Ryan, they absolutely deserve it after the Saturday night that they had.
Yeah, the steward's getting a well-deserved rest, but Andy Boardman's not getting a rest because he's just made a mistake. And is that going to allow Martin Schumacher to go ahead into 11th? Yes, it is, quite comfortably indeed. The 411 won't have to work too hard for that one. And that's the second time, or is it the third time today, we've seen Andy Boardman just make a mistake, going wide onto the curbs, just unstabilizing the car. I wonder if the ride height of that car is just a bit too low and it's bottoming out on some of these curbs. And Andy Boardman is paying the price for it.
Yeah, I think you might be right there, Ryan. I feel like there are some cars, like we saw in the first few laps, a couple of cars, it didn't matter what manufacturer you were in, just get on the curb and seen and lose it. It started with Cormac and then James Parker, and it's one of those things. It can happen to you, and you have to be mindful of it. And perhaps Boardman suffering from a very similar handling issue. Well, we just saw, as we were showing the replay and talking about the start, we saw Killian Ryan Meenan come down pit lane just shy of the halfway point in the race. I would consider that their strategy done. Pit near the midway point and get after it to see if they can make up the 5-second gap that they were down to Noble. Well, the pack really just hasn't moved that much, as he went from 2nd to 16th with just one pit stop. There was nothing strange about the pit stop at all. It was routine. And that's how far back they are. In fact, they're so far back in 16th, they're about 17 seconds behind Borovic in 15th, apparently, is how far back they are. Well, that is the price you pay for a pit stop. Mike Noble leads Mia Rose by 8.5 seconds. Schaefer in 3rd now. And this man, Baba, in 4th place, who I thought was going to trouble Schaefer a little bit more, but now all of a sudden, look at that 66 creeping into the picture. Baranek now has made this a 3-way fight for a podium spot.
Yeah, Romano Baranek creeping back into this, of course losing out on the straights, but it's going to be in the 1st and 3rd sector where the Porsche will regain a lot of that time. And Romano Baranek going to do his absolute best to finish as high up as he can. And yeah, just interesting to see. I can only assume then that Baranek is lapping quicker than Schaefer to have had to catch up. He was about 1.6 seconds behind Barber, so I can only assume the Porsche is lapping quicker than both of these Ferraris. Meanwhile, Porsche versus Porsche further back for 14th place. It's Ethan Jenkins and Philip Borovic. We saw Borovic make a mistake earlier on in the race on the inside line and will make it past Jenkins. So on the corner where they made a mistake earlier and almost found themselves in the wall, well, quite the contrast this time, making an overtake, and very nicely done indeed. It is very quiet in the steward's box, and you know how quiet it is in the steward's box, Jesse? Joe Gleason has come out into the chat, and he said that they're so jealous of the stewards at Austria giving out penalties that they want something to do at the moment. And it's a bit of an awkward situation for the stewards. They're getting to enjoy the race and the broadcast for once.
Yes, indeed. Well, Gleason was in the chat prior to the James Parker incident, asking you to curse somebody. And right around that time, I mentioned that scene corner can be a bit of a red herring. And then all of a sudden, one lap later, James Parker has an incident there. So, Joe, I feel like you had the right idea, just the wrong commentator today, perhaps. But certainly, they do enjoy watching the race when they can. Baba here, not even going to defend this particular move. But the second the Porsche comes out of the slipstream, Baranek just can't get around the Porsche, not stout enough in clean air. And side by side go the two Ferraris now, Schaefer and Baba. Could this potentially be the move? Baba down on the outside, and to the inside is Baranek. Baranek thinking about staying on the inside. Can they do it? No. Still looking around the outside of Schaefer is Baba, and they have to very quickly sort it out to go single file, but still trying to make it work. And there's going to be contact between Baranek and Baba, and more contact between Baranek and Baba. Baba not pleased with how he was not given room there, but it is going to be Baranek up to the 4th place position. Baba's going to lose out down to 5th. Can now Baranek catch Schaefer? Mia Rose in the pit lane for their pit stop.
Barber's coming into the pit lane as well. I think that's probably the scrappiest driving we've seen all day. And wouldn't it be better if every day was like this for racing, Jesse, where the stewards didn't have much work to do at all? It would be a much safer environment for everyone to get along with. We can only hope that it improves further and further. But yep, Mia Rose into the pit lane, Barber into the pit lane, Lima also coming into the pits, as does IPEX. So quite a few drivers deciding that now, just before the halfway point of the race, is the ideal time to pit. So we know who is on a half-tank strategy. Well, we've seen Kilian Ryan Meenan come in already. And we know that the rest of these drivers are also on a half-tank strategy. And we know those that are going a bit longer as well, because they're all still out on the track. And still out on the track is Robin Schaefer and Romano Baranek. And Romano Baranek, he got past Barber, and he's not done with the Ferraris yet, because now he wants to get past Schaefer. And I tell you what, the Porsche doesn't have the speed on the straights, but he's sticking with the Ferraris where it matters, and then capitalizing in the final sector where that Porsche just seems so much stronger.
Give credit to Robin Schaefer, absolutely taking all of this in stride, but would probably like a few laps to just sort of run in quiet by themselves, but certainly not the case. A little bobble there coming off the carousel, but still, Baranek very good in the twisty stuff. The Ferrari seems to be struggling a little bit, a little loose perhaps, and could be a contact and a little bit of a bump. Well, we were just talking about the stewards wanting something to do. I reckon they will take a look at that previous couple of contacts, but I also reckon that it will be a racing incident or no further action. It'll be one of the two. As is Romano Baranek thinking about ducking down the pit lane, is indeed ducking down the pit lane. Perhaps a smart decision here if they have the pace. And Mike Noble right here for FFS Racing in the pit lane as well. So no saving for Mike Noble this week, as he was going all out, and that means that Robin Schaefer will be the leader of the race. How long will Robin Schaefer go, I wonder?
Interesting to find out, and interesting to know as well. Mia Rose 5.2 seconds behind Kilian Ryan Meenan. We saw Kilian pit early, and he has managed to make that undercut work a treat. It was only about a 2-second gap between the two of them when Kilian came into the pit lane. That has now been extended by 3.2 seconds, and that's not down to a difference in pit stop times. There's only about a second difference in their pit stop times, and that wouldn't really equate to 3 seconds out on track. So Kilian Ryan Meenan just managing to find pace somewhere that Mia Rose hasn't managed to find. And the interesting thing to see is where will Mike Noble come out, and he is out on the track. He's in 6th place according to our timing board right now. I don't think that's entirely correct. Oh no, it is correct, as it has now updated, and it's 3.3 seconds between Killian Ryan-Minen and Mike Noble. So Killian has closed the gap. It was 4+ seconds when we last saw the gap between these two, and it was closing on 5 seconds, I think, as well. So Killian has managed to cut that down by at least 1.5 seconds. So the undercut has worked so far for the Ferrari, but can Killian now put the power down and start to close that gap? He's going to have to if he wants to win here tonight.
Well, as you might expect, I have been doing the maths, and he gained 2.6 seconds in pit lane, and that's, well, perhaps not on pit lane, but in the exchange of the in and out lap and the pit delta, of course. 2.6 seconds the difference, but like you said, it is now a question of, can Killian catch Mike Noble, something he struggled to do in the first half of the race. We'll have to see and find out. It's 3.2 now, as it's actually came down more because of, no doubt, the perhaps colder tire temps, the not up to temperature tires of the 123 Mike Noble machine. What will it be at the line here? This might give us a good indicator of what it's going to be like. Ooh, 2.8 coming down all the time for Killian Ryan-Minen. Hello, everybody out there watching on RCI TV. We hope that you're enjoying today's broadcast as much as we are and the stewards are. And we would like to invite you to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and join us for future broadcasts. We'll be back with you on Thursday for the GT4 Championship. I'm filling in for Ryan Mawson. It'll be me and Christian Stricker for that race. And then the restart of the brand new Friday Championship with Mike Jones and myself. And of course, on Saturday, Night Owl resumes as well. Racing all the time here on RCI TV. Don't miss out. And a big thank you to all of our partners that make this race and every race possible. Race Department, AK Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. More information about those fantastic folks in the description. Support people that support RCI. And if you're looking to join in, we have a split for you. Doesn't matter if you're an esports pro or just starting out. Join our Discord. Get involved in an upcoming season.
Plenty of involvement in this battle right here between Robert Schaefer.
I wondered how you were going to segue into that. That was brilliant.
And these drivers have been stuck together like glue even after the pit stops. And we saw Manas Girardis making his way through, back up through the field after his mistake earlier on in the race, which cost him quite a bit of time and forced him to change his tires, we're led to believe, as well. So he's on his recovery drive, but not doing too bad at the moment, up in 6th place. It's only Martin Schumacher and Olaf Leffer that have not come into the pit lane at this point in time. Ooh. And that's Steve. Oh, no! Has gone around, and Berenic's around as well.
Somehow Robin Schaefer navigates an unintentional chicane and gets around. So let's see what happens here. The 866 hits the inside curve, comes back around, makes contact with the 939, and then spins the Porsche, and then somehow the 939 gets all the way around that, dodging and weaving around. Robin Schaefer, the beneficiary there perhaps, but also a little damage, I would imagine, from that contact, and probably the first serious incident we've seen today involving multiple cars.
Well, the stewards will have plenty of time to have a good look at that one. They haven't had too much work to do today, so they will probably take a bit of extra time on each incident, I would imagine, because, well, they have the ability to do so. They're not under pressure to get through incidents as they typically are, and we'll look out for the resolution of that incident. Meanwhile, Bart Matcher closing down on Andy Boardman, the usual strategist of the race. But Marcher qualified. Where did he qualify? He qualified 9th, and he's currently in 9th place, so hasn't gained anything so far. He's going to look to go up into 8th right now, though, and be +1 on his starting position, and he will be so. The Connection Loss Racing 404 makes it up into 8th place, and we've got 4 Ferraris in a row from 7th downwards at this point in time, and the Ferraris seeming to gather in the mid-pack, it would seem, apart from Killian Ryan Meenan.
Well, we saw the 12 get the first drive-through penalty of the day. Of course, that's not a RCI steward decision. That's an ACC steward decision for track limits. So drive-through for the 12, but that car has parked it. I can also tell you the 888 of James Parker, that BMW garage door has come down. They will take no further part in the race, and the 12 is sitting on the pit lane, so not what they would have wanted, perhaps yielding here. And Mike Noble has caught Leffa in the 308. Leffa still hasn't pitted yet, and how hard now will Leffa continue to fight for this position? Killian Ryan Meenan, who has dropped back considerably, 0.8 of a second he's lost. Can Leffa do anything to defend? Taking the defensive line is the Porsche, but I don't think it will matter. And in fact, it doesn't. It doesn't even make it to the end of the Mistral Straight, and the pass is done. Easy peasy for the 123.
Yeah, and Killian Ryan Meenan has started to lose time to the likes of Mike Noble. 3.6 seconds plus the gap right now, and Romano Berenic recovering after getting involved in that incident with Schaefer and Barber. Now looking to make his way back past Andy Boardman and up into 10th place. Boardman, who was going forward through the field, now finding himself very much going the opposite direction and not what he would have wanted. Especially at this point in the race, in the latter stages of the race, you definitely want to be going forwards and not the other way around. And Berenic, is he going to sneak up the inside here? Is he going to make it cut? If not, he's going to have a try on the outside, or maybe a potential cutback on to the next corner. Boardman's going to go defensive. Berenic tries for the cutback, but Boardman has closed it off. We've seen Boardman close off that move a couple of times already in the race. Good defending from the Ferrari, and now it's going to force Berenic to try another move up the inside. We've seen Berenic get very hand-to-hand and door-to-door with a few cars here today. He's going to ride the curb on the inside. He's going to get a good exit out of this corner as well. The Ferrari might have the legs towards the end of the straight, but the Porsche has the exit. And it looks like he's in front, in fact, before the corner, cuts across and will take the position. Romano Berenic, very, very harsh but firm on the likes of Andy Boardman, and I would imagine he's probably not in too good of a mood after he was rather unfortunately spun around by Barber just a few laps ago, and maybe just now using that aggression to put some pretty firm passes on anyone he comes up against.
Well, I can tell you the first incident between the 866 and the 66. Remember, this is not the incident where cars spun around, mind you. This was the earlier incident that we theorized would just be a racing incident. The stewards agree. Stephen DeVos says racing incident between the 866 and the 66. 2 minor contacts that occurred with no position change. Now, we are still awaiting the steward's verdict on the other contact between the 866 and the 66 and the 939, and we will bring that to you when we can. But Boardman, though, I noticed he flashed his lights as Berenic went through, perhaps not
too
happy. Yeah, I imagine he wasn't as happy as he could have been considering how hard he was raced, but you got to admit, though, Ryan, it was fair and clean.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things, isn't it? It's hard but fair racing, and there's no rules against firm overtakes as long as they are within the rules. And that one obviously sitting well within the rules. There was no contact between the two cars, even though I'm pretty sure Andy Boardman didn't like the swipe across the front that Romano Berenic did. And I know that I myself am not too keen when drivers do that. They get past you and then all of a sudden swipe across the front of you. It can be quite startling at times, especially when you don't expect it. But there's nothing against the rules as long as you don't cause an accident by doing something like that. Romano Berenic was very, very clean, and in fact, he's pulled away a massive gap on Andy Boardman already, 3.1 seconds between the two of those. Romano Berenic absolutely flying, and he's found himself in a triple-layered Ferrari sandwich at the moment. He's got 3 Ferraris in front, 3 Ferraris behind him, and, well, if Romano Berenic didn't know any better, he would think that he's found his way into the wrong Cup Car series.
I was going to say, Romano Berenic, it sounds like a delicious sort of sandwich until you realize the state of it. It's literally 3 on either side. He's going to get really annoyed driving against those particular cars. But here's Boardman again trying to go up the inside. Kumpu trying to go up the inside of Boardman, I should say. And almost without a challenge, Kumpu gets around. If there ever was a diagram of how you're supposed to pass or how a pass is supposed to work, that would be how it is supposed to go. Killian Ryan has got by the 308 of Leffa, by the way, and has actually started to walk him. It was less than a sector ago, but now it's somehow 2.5 seconds. And I wonder if maybe the pass had just occurred whenever I first noticed that. But Killian around up into third, 4.6 off of the lead. It was down to 2.8 at one point. And now back up to 4.6. I don't think Mike Noble's saving, but let's talk about Martin Schumacher here for one moment. Mike Noble's 12.1 behind him. But is Schumacher...
Here's Bart Matcher. That's going to be contact.
Contact.
Sorry to cut in, Jesse, but Bart Matcher making his way up the inside at turn 1, and a slight bit of contact there. I'm not too sure there'll be much done about that, though, although Gerardis could be losing another place, because here comes Barber in the 866, and there we go. In the space of a couple of corners, 2 Ferraris make their way through on the Audi, and Gerardis has picked up a penalty for track limits abuse, so now he's got to drive through on top of that. And a day for Gerardis that was going so well, up in the top 10, is now a disaster, because he has Romano Berenic right on his tail, and he has a drive-through penalty to serve within the next 3 laps.
Mono Jardis is going to, if he didn't already not like Paul Ricard, he definitely won't like it now. Drive through for track limits, and that is going to be his day pretty much over as Berenic goes through here. Berenic. Yeah, just going through, and oh dear, it's just, this is the point in the race. You cannot lose your focus. It is starting to come undone. I don't think that's the last drive-through we're going to see. I don't mean to be very foreshadowing, but based on previous experience, I feel like it's something that we could continue to see. Bart Macha in front of Baba up into 7th place. Connection Loss Racing driver who spent the most of this race in the position he started in, now trending in the right direction.
And just as you called it, but that's actually for causing, that's a penalty for causing a collision. That's not a track limit one. That is the penalty. Well, that's the resolution, sorry, to the incident that we saw earlier on. Barber dived down the inside of Schaefer, you might remember, and span himself and ended up tagging Berenic in the process. Well, the stewards have decided that was worthy of a drive-through penalty. And that's not a penalty we see the stewards give out lightly, is it, Jesse?
Yeah, no, it's not. It for a penalty like that. Oh, just 1 second here. Side by side, thinking about going 3 wide here. Thinks better of it. Contact between them, AMG, and it's not done yet, Ryan.
And there's more contact because now Chinotti's got in on it. And Chinotti in the 251. I think he is going to eventually squeeze through on Andy Boardman. But that's going to be more frustration for Andy Boardman. Now Paolo Lima's through, and Chinotti has followed in suit. Andy Boardman's position graph is going to look like a mountain. It goes up in the first half of the race, and it goes down in the second half of the race. And That's not exactly what he would want. He's going to have a look back here on the Mistral Straight, though, having the slipstream in behind Cinotti. Is he going to have a look on the outside? Very dangerous to try this move, but no, he's going to tuck back in and see if he can make anything of it. Will Cinotti make a mistake coming down into the long right-hander? No, seems to get the car turned in perfectly, and the move will stick.
I gotta tell you, Andy Boardman's going to be as mad as a greased weasel at the end of this race. It's not gone their way, and they've been passed around and passed over a few times. So the frustration certainly could be setting in. Baba into the pit lane to serve that drive-through penalty. And just to say that, Jones racing Borovic here. Borovic, who has had their struggles today, now finds them fighting for the 14th place position. Now, as they do this, I just want to go back to the 866 drive-through penalty, as looks like a pass is going to be made, or is it going wide? No, pass not completed. Jones hangs on to it. Perhaps a dive bomb to the inside by Borovic. No, and they remain single file. But like I was saying about that penalty, I was curious how the stewards were going to write that up, and to get a drive-through like that, it must have been what they call multiple contacts and multiple cars affected, and of course it was. So the official penalty, drive-through for 866. The 866 dive bombs the 939 on the final corner, forces them off the track, and then spins and takes out the 66. Multiple cars taken out with several positions lost for the 66. That is why the penalty for the 866 was so harsh, because it impacted and lost multiple cars' positions.
Yeah, I'm thinking at that point, when it gets broken down in that sense, it kind of makes sense. But we do have Farrago in the chat pointing out that Martin Schumacher is losing time to Mike Noble, and that would be expected, really. Mike Noble has pitted. He should be closing down in theory. We're expecting Martin Schumacher to pit after Ryan Meenan's claim that the BMW can't do 80 minutes on a single tank. So we would expect Martin Schumacher to pit at some point in this race. But we may be proven wrong again, as we were at Barcelona. And here is Bart Matcher and Romano Baranich just going to go up the inside. Bart Matcher not fighting that one too hard, probably thinking, look, that Porsche, he's got the best on me. He is much, much quicker. I'm not going to bother getting in his way and potentially risking an incident. And I think with the mood that Romano Baranich is in after being spun around, probably a good idea from Bart Matcher.
Well, you like to see good racing, you like to see close racing, and, as a driver, I can tell you, you never want to deal with an angry driver. There's certainly times to fight it, and there's certainly times to let it go. This will be one of the times to fight it here. Jones and Borovic going at it again. On the outside is Borovic, and gets the pass done into one. Philippe Borovic into the 15th place position over yet, Jones. All trying for the switchback. He's going to get to the outside as Jones, but can't do anything with it. Has to brake late. So position, all in all, surrendered. We'll have to see if Jones can fight back.
Meanwhile, on the Mistral Straight, Paolo Lima under pressure from Cinotti, and Cinotti's going to be past him before he even needs to get to the corner, and doesn't need to go the long way around the outside. The Italian on the Portuguese, and Italy victorious on this occasion. Goes deep into the long right-hander, but Paolo Lima too far back to make anything of it, and that moves Cinotti up into the top 10. And it's another Ferrari making its way up the field. Cinotti, he's going to have a bit of a reverse to what Andy Boardman had. Cinotti qualified, I think it was 5th place. He managed to qualify himself, and in the first half of the race has gone down. In the second half of the race has gone up. His is going to be a reverse mountain. It's going to be a V shape on his position graph post-race. But Cinotti recovering well, and confirmation there that he is up into the top 10. Mike Noble, 3.9 seconds behind Martin Schumacher. Killian, 5.5 seconds behind Mike Noble. In fact, Mia Rose has closed the gap to Killian more than Killian has tried to close the gap to Mike Noble. So it looks like Mike Noble on course for a win here tonight. If he continues to close down Martin Schumacher at the rate that he is right now. And that, of course, is not good news for the championship leader, James Parker, who is unfortunately going to walk away with 0 points here tonight.
Well, I told you that at the end of today, the points championship was likely going to be different, and it was going to come down to the final race weekend. Well, you wouldn't need to be psychic to figure that out. I could have never have guessed, however, how different it was going to be. Mike Noble has been relentless this entire season, and so is his pursuit on Martin Schumacher. And as the time ticks away, I'm wondering, is Martin Schumacher trying to make it to the end? And if he is doing that, could he potentially still finish on the podium, or at worst case, inside the top 5? Now, that's an interesting proposition. We're told that we didn't think, or that some Cormac Ryan Meaden anyway didn't think anybody could do it.
Well,
we heard
Killian.
that.
Let's clarify that.
Killian.
Killian,
excuse me.
I have it in writing, by the way. If anyone's interested, I have it in writing from him. I'm going to take a screenshot of it now in case he deletes it later. But Killian Ryan Meaden said to me, "It is impossible," and he used the words "impossible." So we'll have to find out. If Martin Schumacher does it on a single tank, I'm going to make Killian eat those words.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. I've had a burger sandwich that is made of plants that tastes like a burger, so nothing is impossible. Well, earlier there was contact between Bart Macha and the 111. That turned out to be a racing incident. That on lap 28, and on lap 29, a warning for car 251 for a dive bomb on the 696 car, causing minor contact but no position change, hence just a warning for dive bombs.
Well, the stewards only having to hand out one penalty so far tonight, and well, unfortunately a drive-through penalty. Oh, and here we go, Martin Schumacher into the pit lane. Just seen him peel off there, and that confirms Killian Ryan Meaden's theory that the BMWs cannot go an entire race, or an entire 80-minute stint at Paul Ricard. He was pretty confident. Mia Rose and Mike Noble, that wasn't their strategy. They weren't even going to attempt to go to the end of the race. We will never find out if James Parker was actually going to stick to it or not. But Martin Schumacher has not stuck to it, and he will go into the pit lane, and then he'll come back out for the last 15 minutes and see where he can finish. But that essentially puts Mike Noble back in the lead, Killian into second, and Mia Rose back into third.
Just reading some of the messages in chat, some cheering Martin Schumacher on, and Donkey Drives. Compliments to the stream. Awesome broadcast, and commentators sound really good. Hey, we got one, right? They like us.
Well, someone has to, don't they?
my parents won't return my calls. You're supposed to say something, Ryan. Thank you.
As Jesse Lee gets over the reality of the situation in front of him, Martin Schumacher comes to terms with the reality that he's in the top 10 after the unfortunate qualifying he had earlier on in the evening. Qualified 13th, running in 8th at the moment. 5 places gained. I'd say that's a job well done from Martin Schumacher so far. Not ideally where 3rd place in the championship would like to be, but nonetheless, still a good job and some places gained. And 5-second gap to Bart Matcher, depending on how quick Martin Schumacher can go. 13.5 minutes left. Could potentially catch Bart Matcher. It depends on the pace. And Andy Boardman, he's probably fed up of seeing cars in his mirrors at this point in time, and he'll be hoping that this one actually does stay in his mirrors, but IPEC has other plans, and he's going to look to make a move, and just getting a bit out of shape there, and Andy Boardman's car not looking the greatest at this point in time. I'm convinced that Ferrari is bottoming out on these curbs. It looks so unstable coming out of the Mistral straight, and IPEC at this point in time, it looks inevitable, doesn't it, Jesse? It just looks like IPEC's biding his time. He knows the overtake will come. It's just a matter of when, not if.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. Boardman's car this whole race has just looked unsettled, as if it's bottoming out, as if the suspension's too stiff and the tires are breaking traction, and at places where you can ill afford to do so, off the exit of corners, of course. And Boardman has certainly paid a huge price of that. And of course, contact with other cars has nearly not got a minute of peace to themselves. Well, IPEC will care very little about Boardman's troubles. IPEC's had their own and would like to get this position away for 12th place. Thinks about going down the inside. Not quite close enough. Thinks better of it. Pulls back into line. This wide turn here from IPEC, trying to get the best possible run here. This could be a drag race down the front straightaway. We know that AMG, no slouch in a straight line. We'll see if he can get the suck and get really close, if not around him, by the time they get to scene. Let's watch here.
On board with IPEC. This is what we can see right now coming up towards the back. That Ferrari, it's very quick
he's got
in a
the
straight
suck
line, but the Mercedes is also quick in a straight line, and with that slipstream, the Evo power of that new Mercedes working its hardest, but it's not going to be enough at the end of the Mistral straight. But this is where Andy Boardman is usually at his weakest. This is where we've seen the majority of the mistakes, and is that slightly wide? The 224 squeezes up the inside. There was barely enough room for a Mercedes there, but IPEC made it fit.
Well, that was just good racing there by Levin IPEC. Absolutely pinpoint precision from the AMG driver, and a well-deserved 12th place position. The 224 very clearly showing excellent spatial awareness and car control. My hat's off to you, IPEC. Excellent maneuver. Boardman kept it fair, but close. You got to respect both of them there. Could have very easily been contact. Wasn't on either account. And some excellent racing. And just behind that, by the way, Baba is catching up to this group. And there goes one of the cones that stop, or that show where the touring car or the extra loop is. 120 some variants of this track, Ryan. Absolutely incredible stuff.
Well, earlier on, you might have seen number 24 of Paulo Lima overtake Andy Boardman, and you may remember that there was some contact between those two drivers. Well, the stewards have sorted through those particular incidents, and they've decided 10-second time penalty for Paulo Lima. It's actually 2 5-second penalties added on top of each other, and this is the reason for it. Lap 29, turn 5, 5 seconds for car 24. Aggressive overtake with unnecessary contact on the 696. And then, just 2 corners later, turn 7 on the very same lap. Incident involving 24 and 696. 5 seconds for car 24. Unsafe braking action and causing more unnecessary contact. So the stewards fully in belief that Paulo Lima got past Andy Boardman quite unfairly on 2 occasions, and deciding that he deserved a 5-second penalty for both of them. Andy Boardman, by the way, under pressure from Barber, but he's not going to give up easily. He doesn't want to be losing any more places, and he's going to force Barber to go around the outside, but if he can stick on the outside, it'll turn into the inside of the final corner. And Boardman, can he go for the cutback? He'll get a better exit, it seems, right on the back of Barber, but can he use the straight line speed advantage, or is it all going to be in vain? Will Andy Boardman lose another place? Is he confirmed down into 14th place? It looks like he is. Barber makes up a place into 13th. Boardman relegated to 14th, and the drop back down the field continues for the 696.
I just got to say, if you're Boardman, you're going to wake up in the morning and wonder if you're living inside a pinball machine. It's just bump, bump, bump everywhere you go. And a little bit of contact there. I don't think there's anything malicious by Baba there as they come through the carousel section. And Romano Baranek under attack from Bart Macha trying to get inside the top 5. Well, that's going to be as easy as you please. Bart Macha, top 5. Connection Loss Racing getting it done here, trending up all of the time. We remarked how unremarkable the race was for the 4-4, but they're going to lose it here a little bit too wide, a little bit too harsh in the braking zone, and they will have to do that all over again. Baranek says, thank you very much, I'll take that, but nearly leaves the door open and then rightly slams it shut. Bart Macha back down to 6th place. Oh my goodness, close racing indeed, but good racing as well. Absolutely good stuff. By the way, the 22 received a warning for contact earlier, but no penalty for Borvik.
We saw Bart Matcher let Baranek through earlier on in the race, and I thought Baranek was probably just going to disappear up into the distance, but Bart Matcher able to keep with the Porsche, put the pressure back on Baranek, and even make an overtake, although short-lived top 5 for Bart Matcher. Has already had a top 5 this season, if you'll remember, back at Zolder with that incredible strategy play that he pulled off. And looking to replicate those feats here at Paul Ricard, but he has Romano Baranek in his way. That little mistake, it has knocked his pace a bit, but with 6.5 minutes remaining, he's got enough laps to try and make his way back past the Porsche if he can pick up the pace and close down the gap again. And well, if it wasn't enough that Mike Noble's leading the race, Jesse, he's just joined us in the chat as well.
Yeah, so Mike Noble does this. As a matter of fact, that whole FFS team does this on occasion. And folks at home, don't text and drive. Don't talk on the phone and drive. Don't obviously do any of the things you shouldn't be doing while driving. But Mike Noble is, what's another word for special? He's gifted. Mike Noble is gifted. And
I mean, George Smith would use the words disgusting, but in a good way.
Yeah, he does use those words. I keep telling him I don't think it means what he thinks it means, but rather beside the point, it is absolutely hilarious. And of course, the Mistral Straight, the longest straight in ACC, I'm pretty sure. I don't think any other straight comes close to it. You have enough time to pull up the chat, type a message, because you're not really steering or doing anything. Oh, and the wipers are on now. Extra horsepower for Mike Noble here.
Just giving us a bit of a wave here in the commentary box. One of the Mike Noble specials, and hasn't got much to do at this point in time. 8.4 second gap to Killian Ryan Meenan. He's got it pretty safe in the bag at this point in time, assuming he doesn't make a mistake like we've seen James Parker make earlier on in the race, and a few others have made here tonight as well. But Mike Noble doesn't have to push to his limit. 8.4 second gap, he can pretty much ease off the pace a bit, but not that I think he will. Not a very Mike Noble thing to do. Killian Ryan Meenan, in the meantime, I don't think there's enough time left, but Mia Rose is continuously closing on Killian. She's closed the gap now to 3.7 seconds. As I said, I don't think she'll have enough time to make it all the way up to the back of the Ferrari and mount a pass, but she has definitely been closing in the last few laps, and that will be encouragement for Mia Rose going into the final round of the championship, picking up a podium potentially here today. She looks pretty safe to pick up a podium, 18 seconds ahead of Schaefer, and that will do her a world of good in the championship standings as well, with Martin Schumacher and James Parker finishing, well, not just behind her, but James Parker finishing with no points at all.
Bama here fighting for his spot on the track. IPEC still yet to get that spot away from him. earlier contact between the 866 and the 969. We saw that earlier. Well, that's going to be a racing incident, minor contact, and they were side by side when it happened. So RCI stewards will typically allow you to race in that instance. FIA, I'm looking at you. So no further. Well, it wasn't a no further action. It was a racing incident indeed. You're talking about Mike Noble not knowing, not letting up or continuing to push. Mike Noble's big focus right now is don't get any more track limits. Just don't do it. Just stay away from the track limits. And if that slows you down, so be it. And I don't think it will for Mike Noble. But either way, that would be the big case for me, is that's the one thing that can ruin his day as he continues to grow the gap 9 seconds. Talked about Killian Ryan Meenan. It's going to be a nice day for him. It's also going to be a great day for Mia Rose, a well-deserved podium this season. The Jean Alesi Esports Academy driver and the Australian is looking like they're going to be rewarded a brilliant start and an excellently strategized and ran race. Is going to see them completely out of danger, some 19 seconds in front of Schaefer in 4th place. Literally nobody around them. It's almost been sort of peaceful for Mia Rose this second half.
And Mia Rose, I mean, flying the... I mean, at what point, what do we call it, Southeast Asia? I'm not entirely sure where Australia falls now in terms of the continental.
Oceania.
It used to fall in Oceania back when I was in school, but I've
back in your day, Grandpa.
Yeah, but back in my day. But I've since been informed by my younger cousin who was at school recently that it's now fallen into the Southeast Asia categorization. So technically, it's part of Asia. There's also the debate about Australasia, but we're not going to get into continents on this broadcast as Nico Kumpu looks to remove Martin Schumacher from 7th place. But Mia Rose is. I mean, she's the only driver that we have around here that's a regular from that part of the world. I mean, I can't think of any other Australian drivers that we have in RCI on a regular basis throughout any of the splits, whether it be Pro, Silver, Am, Rookie. And Mia Rose definitely flying that flag for that part of the world and the Aussies out there. If there are any Australian fans out there watching, well, Mia Rose is the driver to cheer for if you weren't already aware of her. She did go out and win one of the SRO Asia races last year, didn't she, if I recall correctly?
Indeed.
So definitely a driver to keep an eye out for, and I believe she's also going to be racing in Super Silverstone in just a few weeks' time as well with Anor Rose. So look out for their car on the grid. Not entirely sure what they're going to be racing yet. But back to the racing that is happening right now on track. Here comes Nico Kumpu. Look at the straight line speed of the Ferrari up in the slipstream of the BMW. They're going to go really, really close. And slight contact. And how did that not result in a horrible accident at that speed? Any contact can be fatal. And it was so marginal. But my word, Kumpu and Martin Schumacher, that was close, and I'm impressive. I can't even get the words out. I'm impressed that Nico Kumpu managed to keep that car straight. Unbelievable scenes.
I'm sorry. I was just looking back at it. Leader on the final lap, Mike Noble on the final lap. These two will continue to race for that 7th place position. What do you reckon? 270 Ks down the straightaway, and they make contact, which, you could argue either way. Should they have even made contact in that situation? But it's neither here nor there. They lived to see through it, and they continue to race on. But like you said, that is such a vulnerable place, so much speed, I'd reckon about 170-ish miles an hour at the end of that straight to make contact, and for both cars to not only continue, but not really have any sort of issue with that contact is absolutely beyond that. I just wanted to look at it again just to make sure I saw it correctly, and indeed, very significant contact, I would say, that did not change the outcome of that race. Well, I tell you something else, it was never really in doubt for Mike Noble for FFS Racing. He comes with a different colored car every week, and he has certainly been the more dominant driver in recent weeks. Well, Mike Noble is not only going to flip on the wipers and win here at Paul Ricard, he's also going to take the championship lead. It's another win for Mike Noble. Killian Ryan Meenan was part of the Mike Noble fan club, will come home second and celebrate with his hero. And Mia Rose, all the way from sunny Australia, cold Australia this time of year, will finally see a podium out. Mia Rose third. Schaefer's going to come home in fourth place without a contest. What a fantastic race Schaefer had. Fourth it will be for him. Romano Baranek in the 66 had an adventure of a race today. Will come home fifth, and everybody cycling through. Bart Macha will be sixth, and what I'm looking for is Kumpu still in front of Schumacher. It looks like that is the case. Kumpu seventh, Schumacher eighth. Lima with a 10-second penalty will come home ninth, but will lose several positions. I believe Chinati will be ninth, Baba will be 10th, and Lima will be 11th here.
Well, Mike Noble's car colors may not be consistent, but his performances definitely are. And
look at this!
He's it's BMW is parked in the corner here at Paul Ricard, and I tell you what, he's not the only Dutchman getting back-to-back race wins, is he? At the moment.
How many Formula One references can we fit in one broadcast?
A fair few, I'd reckon, by the stream we've had here tonight. And it's not as if we've been bored either. We've had plenty of entertainment going on in this race, and it definitely has been a race to watch. Congratulations to Mike Noble, Killian Ryan Meenan, and Mia Rose on the podium. Tragic for James Parker and Cormac Ryan Meenan, both of those out of the race through similar incidents. And, well, for James Parker, the championship lead very, very much disappeared and at the end of this race. And he'll have to hope that he can fight back for the season finale, which is going to be out at the Nürburgring. And it's going to be two 40-minute races. We return to the format that we had at Imola. And it's going to be interesting to see if James Parker can mount a challenge back onto Mike Noble, or if Mike Noble is just simply too far ahead.
Well, there will be work to do for Mike Noble. It's not done just because he's had an extremely great stretch of races. He will have to perform in 2 races in 1 week's time. We invite you all to join us then. Hit the subscribe and the bell. Don't miss that. And, of course, our next broadcast on Thursday with the GT4 Championship. It'll be me, Jesse Lee, and Christian Stricker bringing you all the action from that. The Friday Champ returns on Friday with Mike Jones and myself. And, of course, Night Owl on Saturday with me and Ryan Mawson. And you can find good old Ryan Rai Gill and myself back with you for the Euro Masters finale in 1 week's time. Ryan, it's going to be action-packed. 2 40-minute races and a championship yet to be decided. I can't wait. It's going to be a fantastic event. Thank you to Jake for the broadcast, and of course the stewards as well. Ryan, can't wait to do this next week.
Likewise here, Jesse. It's going to be an absolutely fantastic finale. And out at the Nürburgring, there's going to be no talks of fuel saving there. It's going to be full beans to the end for both races, for all of the drivers out there. And that's the kind of excitement we love to see. Imola was a great opener to the season with those 2 sprint races. And, of course, we hope that Nürburgring will be a very similar thing. And, well, I haven't quite had a look at the forecast yet, Jesse, but I believe it's been a while since it's rained. So, potentially some overcast weather coming at the Nürburgring in a week's time. But we'll have to see when we show up on race day. Big thank you to everyone tuning in this evening. Of course, do make sure to check out our partners, Race Department, aka Informatica, Driver 61, Fanatec, and Sim Racing GP. We have a discount code. I was going to say affiliate link. That's not correct. We have a discount code for Driver 61 if you want to improve your skills, whether you're an esports pro or just a rookie starting out. Driver 61's Sim Racing Academy is perfect for you. And it's cheap as well. Did you know, Jesse, it's only $10 to get coaching from a professional racing driver with real-world experience. And they're not too bad on a sim either. We had quite a few people test it out last year as part of the Friday Championship, and I've been told that quite a lot of them want to go back for another session. So definitely check out Driver 61, and of course check out Fanatec if you want some new sim racing gear. They have some awesome stuff coming through the pipeline at the moment, and some more stuff to come in the future, we've been told. But from myself, from Jesse Lee, from Jake Boswell, all the drivers here tonight, the stewarding team, and everyone else at RCI, we hope you enjoyed the stream, and we look forward to seeing you next week for the season finale at the Nürburgring. But for now, enjoy the rest of your evening.